Have you seen Novocaine?
We have a thing.
We don't have a thing.
There is no greater wrath than a woman scorned.
Wait, my bad, not that one. This one.
I'm just a regular guy, but I don't feel pain.
Let's move!
Oh my God, what am I doing?
What happens when a man who can't feel begins to feel? Well, he murders 3 people and commits absolute abuse upon himself, so.
That escalated quickly. I mean, that really got out of hand fast.
It jumped up a notch.
But jumping into it, I'm just going to put it out there before we jump into this review, so you can decide now to keep watching. This movie was all right. You know, it wasn't great. It wasn't bad. It was a, goodish movie. A 6 out of 10, middle of the road. So if you are still with me, let's jump into talking about the cast, director, plot, and eventually the review, and my issues with it. I'll put the timestamp here, or, you follow the link in the description. But outside of that, let's jump in. Jack Quaid, who plays Nathan Novocaine Kane. If you didn't realize, he's also the child of Dennis Quaid and Meg Ryan. In his early career, you can point to him receiving a leg up, here and there, as he is a Nepo baby. But since around 2019, he has really built out his career on his own, and he has secured numerous roles because of it. In 2019, in film, Quaid played in a romantic comedy Plus One, and from there, he's just gotten bigger and better roles. In 2021, Quaid voiced Alberto Falcone in Batman: The Long Halloween. In 2022, he played the most predictable killer in the whole Scream franchise in Scream 4032. This was then followed in 2023 with his portrayal as Richard Feynman in Oppenheimer. But 2025 is officially the year of Jack Quaid, as he will be in 4 movies, 2 of which have already been released, Novocaine and Companion. But of course, most people will probably know Quaid from his extensive TV career. Starting way back in 2016, Quaid starred in a Mick Jagger, Martin Scorsese creation, Vinyl. But, that show didn't last very long. In 2019, coinciding with his big swing into film, Quaid secured his longest-lasting role of Huey Campbell in The Boys. From there, he has done numerous roles like Richie Rich in Harvey Girls Forever, a few roles in Solar Opposites, and landing the coveted role of Clark Kent Superman in My Adventures with Superman. Also, he played Talon's son in Shadow of Mordor and War of Mordor way back in 2017. Now, moving over to our main character's romance, Amber Midthunder, who plays Sherry Margrave, whose character I didn't even know had a last name. But starting way back in 2016, Amber Midthunder secured her first major, can't say major, she secured her first main role in the most audible section of the cast, in a Christian romantic drama about human trafficking called Priceless. That was such a strange sentence to say. But from there, she appeared in movies like 14 Cameras and Centurion the Dancing Stallion, big roles for terribly reviewed movies. And it didn't end there, as she did star in a Liam Neeson movie, The Ice Road. But starting in 2021, Midthunder would begin to turn her luck around with her highest rated movie, The Wheel, and this would be followed by her household name-making movie, Prey. Love it or hate it, I'm a little bit in the middle of the road with it. We're finally getting more Predator movies. But Midthunder also has an extensive career with TV, just like Quaid, with roles in miniseries like Misadventures of Psyche and Me, 2019's Roswell, New Mexico, where she played Rosa, and recurring role as Princess Yu in Avatar: The Last Airbender, the live-action one on Netflix. But her most recognizable, or at least recognizable for me, is her role as Carrie Loudermilk in 2017's Legion. Now coming over to our bad guy, Ray Nicholson, or Simon Greeley, another character who, for some odd reason, has a last name. Nicholson, though, if you didn't realize, is the son of Jack Nicholson, and he really began to build out his career in 2021 with his main role on Amazon Prime TV series Panic. After its cancellation and the beginning of his distancing of TV, he has secured numerous roles, including a few as the starting man, roles such as Out of the Blue, Something from Tiffany's, I Love You Forever, and comedy thriller Borderline. Now coming over to our comedic relief, who's not nearly in the movie enough, Jacob Batalon, who plays Roscoe Dixon. Batalon if I'm saying that correctly, I would say is probably the most recognizable of this whole cast, outside of maybe Jack Quaid. It's not because of his stellar career as the starting man, but more his recurring support role in the Spider-Man franchise. But if we ignore his roles in Avengers and Spider-Man, where he plays Tom Holland's Peter Parker's best friend Ned Leeds, he doesn't have a full resume. Focusing on his major roles, he did horror comedy Bloodfest, and then in 2024 he was in another horror movie, Tarot. And 2022 he broke ground in TV, if you ignore his appearances in a few episodes here and there, with Reginald the Vampire as Reginald Andres. But that was canceled after 2 seasons, and since then, nothing really. Coming over to our, I guess, supporting cast, main cop character, Betty Gabriel plays Mincy Langston. Betty Gabriel, though, has done big, small, and sometimes just bad roles. She's been in some crapfest movies like The Purge, Election Year, and Beyond Skyline. Neat fact, they're both guerrilla movies. And she's also has done a lot of middle-of-the-road movies as well, like Unfriended, Dark Web, and It Lives Inside. And then she's done some very well-received but smaller films like Upgrade and Spine of the Night. And by small, I mean I haven't heard of them, or maybe they didn't have a wide release, but they're probably wonderful. But she's probably most recognizable for her TV roles such as Counterpart, Defending Jacob, Clickbait. But she's probably most recognizable for her 2022 through 2023 role, where she played Elizabeth Wright in Amazon's Jack Ryan, and will be appearing in its upcoming film as well. Also, special mention to Matt Walsh, who was her buddy cop in this movie. Dan Burke and Robert Olson are our directors. Small-time directors who are fast and up and coming. In a few years, we may even see them headlining their own Marvel movie. But their film career began probably back in 2015, if you ignore the shorts, with the movie Body. From there, they did the sequel to Stakeland 2, and somehow from there, they were able to secure budgets and free reins to make a film that they wrote and directed called Villains, with Bill Skarsgård as the lead. This was followed up with another stab at free reign with a movie that they also wrote, with their movie Significant Others, which created a bidding war that eventually became a Paramount Plus exclusive. Now, if we go with Rotten Tomatoes or certain horror movie review sites such as Bloody Disgusting, some of their movies are ranked at 80%, with their lowest movie, being their first movie, Body, falling to like a 42%. But if we go with the more accurate, as long as it isn't an Amazon product, IMDb, then we will find that their movies are really middle of the road, with all of them sitting in the range of 5.2 to 6.5. So, kind of just like how I feel about this movie. Lars Jacobson is a nobody. And I'm not trying to be rude, but he is. In 2024, he was the executive producer, not writer, for Fight Night, the $1 Million Heist, which starred Samuel L. Jackson, Don Cheadle, Kevin Hart, Terrence Howard, etc., etc. But his only writer's credit have been for 2 poorly received movies, Baby Blues and Day of the Dead Bloodline. He also wrote 11 episodes for the podcast series Wheel Woman. And that's it. Everything that he's written was produced by him, or he was the director of, such as in the case of Baby Blues. So I don't know how or why Paramount took a chance on this script, but I like the cojones for them to do it, even though it could have completely blown up in their face. And I guess as a way to pad the video a little longer, I'll mention 2 of the producers from this movie as well. Joby Harold and Tori Tunnell. They are the producing partners that have worked on numerous projects together, like My Blind Brother, King Arthur Legend of the Sword, Robin Hood 2018, and quite recently Monarch Legacy of Monsters on Apple. But the real reason I wanted to mention these 2, well, mainly Joby Harold, was for his Abomination, which he wrote and produced, Disney Plus's Obi-Wan Kenobi. So, yeah, just awful. Awful. Just like before in some of my other videos, in order to save time and speed through the plot, I'll be using Wikipedia, and I'll mention after the fact what is incorrect or left out or misplaced. So let's get started. Nathan Cain is a mild-mannered introvert with congenital insensitivity to pain with ahidrosis, or SEPA, working as an assistant manager at a credit union in San Diego. His co-worker, Sherry Margrave, is romantically interested in him, but Nathan is hesitant due to his condition and inexperience with women. At a bar with Sherry, Nathan encounters his middle school bully who calls him Novocaine.
Novocaine? Holy shit! It is you!
Sherry gets revenge for Nathan by tricking the bully into drinking a shot of hot sauce. The two then have sex. Okay. The next morning, on Christmas Eve, a gang of robbers dressed up in Santa suits, led by Simon Greenlee, rob the credit union. Simon murders Nathan's boss Nigel and takes Sherry as hostage. Nathan impulsively steals a police car in pursuit of the car in which Sherry is being held, but he follows the wrong car and ends up in a confrontation with another robber, Ben Clark, in a restaurant kitchen. He eventually shoots Ben dead, but not before severely burning his hand while retrieving Ben's gun from a deep fryer. After noticing Ben's tattoo, Nathan asks his only friend, Roscoe Dixon, a gamer whom he has never met in person, to help him find the artist. He successfully tracks down the artist Zeno and interrogates him for Ben's address, hoping to find Sherry. After a brawl, Nathan obtains Ben's last name from Zeno and calls a colleague to find Ben's home address using his loan documents.
Yeah, listen, I was hoping you could run a quick credit check on a new client whose files incomplete. His name is Ben Clark. He did serve in the military. Does that narrow it down? Yeah, VA loans. That's him. You don't have any employment on record, do you?
Ben's house is booby-trapped and Nathan ends up being stuck in a snare. In desperation, he calls Roscoe. Ben's brother, Andre, another bank robber, enters the house and begins to torture Nathan, who feigns feeling pain. Roscoe arrives and together they overpower and kill Andre. Police officer Mincy Langston and her partner Coltrane Duffy arrive at the house and arrest Roscoe, who has switched clothes with Nathan. Nathan locates Sherry and Simon at an auto shop and discovers she is Simon's adoptive sister and an accomplice to the heist. She originally intended to seduce Nathan to learn the bank vault code, but developed real feelings for him and was horrified that Simon needlessly murdered her boss, Nigel. Simon tries to kill Nathan against Sherry's protest, but is shot by the arriving Coltrane while Sherry and Nathan are arrested. Simon in turn shoots Coltrane dead and wounds Mincy, escaping in an ambulance now holding Nathan. Sherry frees herself from the handcuffs and she pursues the ambulance while Roscoe drives a wounded Mincy to the hospital. After regaining consciousness, Nathan breaks free from his handcuffs and defibrillates Simon, causing him to crash. Having had enough of Nathan, Simon breaks his arm just as Sherry arrives. As he is about to kill Sherry, Nathan injects himself with adrenaline and kills Simon by sticking his exposed arm bone through Simon's jaw before falling unconscious, finally exhausted by his injuries. When Nathan awakes in a hospital 2 weeks later, he learns he has been sentenced to 6 months of house arrest and 5 years of probation instead of a lengthy prison sentence, due to his saving the life of a police officer whose car he took to pursue Sherry, as well as Roscoe and Sherry providing support as character witnesses. 1 year later, Nathan visits Sherry, who is near the end of her short sentence for her role in the robbery. They share a cherry pie, which Sherry had introduced to him on their first date, the first solid food Nathan had eaten in a very long time. As the prison guards lead Sherry back to her cell, Nathan chews and smiles. And that's the plot. And, it's pretty accurate. I mean, we find out that Sherry was in on the bank robbery way before Nathan arrives to save her. And you also left out a section about how she asked him out for a date and all this other kind of stuff. So that's really the only big changes that's left out. So let's talk about the good and the bad of this movie while giving, a general review. This movie, like I said earlier, was fine. It's a 6 out of 10, fun for a watch. Teenagers may like it more than adults, but not a movie that you really need to see. Now, one of the reasons I think the movie was held back for me was the humor or the action. It felt like it didn't really know which one it wanted to be more of. Most of the funny moments are in the trailer, sadly. And some of those funny moments are followed by absolutely brutal moments like the fingernail pulling scene. And at the same time, the humor completely leaves the movie by the final 15 or so minutes, right around Nathan discovering Sherry is in cahoots with the bank robbers. But I kind of feel like this movie could have been really interesting if they pursued one without the other. You know, a thriller bank robbery movie where our hero doesn't feel pain as he pursues the criminals to save his girlfriend, or a romantic dramatic comedy about these two people, one who can't feel pain and one who can't feel anything but pain. And if you're wondering what I'm talking about, it was revealed in the movie that Amber Midthunder's character commits self-mutilation, self-harm. She reveals this to Nathan after he reveals to her earlier in the day about his ability not to feel. And then she takes him to a bar where she reveals that she's in a self-help group for people who harm themselves. So that movie could have been interesting. I just feel that if you wish to keep the movie as it is, I would personally turn up the humor a lot more. One interesting idea that I had was having Matt Walsh survive his gunshot wounds, and then you bring him back and maybe he's sharing a room with Nathan, and every time his partner comes to visit and leaves, it's not an angry rant or anything like that, but it's just a rant about how she left him with a gunshot wound, bleeding out on his final day before retirement. So I think that could have added humor to the end of the movie where it was extremely lacking. But to talk about some of the action in the movie and how it was pretty graphic, and I loved it. So we get to our first taste of what is to come with the bank robbery scene. I mean, you could mention like the coffee moment, but it didn't play that big into the movie. But during the bank robbery, Nicholas's character takes the manager of the bank and shoots him in the head for not telling him the combo to the vault. Now, you don't see it, but the inclusion of blood on the ground and splattered on Midthunder's face prepares you for what's to come. This is then followed with them blowing away the cops and Quaid's chase after the bad guys. Now, coming over to the kitchen fight scene, it was funnier in the trailer with Jack Quaid or Nathan Kane's mannerisms and apologizing after killing the bad guy. In the movie, it just felt more shocking for Kane than genuinely confused like it was in the trailer. But I love the makeup or the prosthetics for the deep fried hand. It was done by, I assume, one of these four people. They were all in the makeup and prosthetics department. But the hand, though, I thought was well done. I've never seen a deep fried wound. I've seen a few grease burns, but not an entire hand. And I don't really have any interest in doing like a Google search to see if it's accurate or not. But if I could change the scene a bit, I think I would have deep fried the bad guy who was covered in flour. Then we move over to the tattoo parlor scene, which I could take or leave. It had an exciting moment of our hero placing glass inside his fists in order to beat his foe, and attacking the Aryan tattooist by scribbling out his not so very nice emblem with the tattoo gun. But at the end of it all, this scene could have easily been written out with Nathan instead using the phone to discover our bad guy's home address or something else like that. But I guess it was extra padding time, and it had some kind of humorous moments.
Fuck. What's happening with your hand?
Oh. Psoriasis. It's really flared up on me today.
But now we come over to our big scene with our hero finding the address to one of the crooks' home and going over to his house. This scene was all over the trailers. It had the arrow in the leg, another moment with our bad guy using the said arrow to torture Nathan. It had the ball and chain to the back. It even had the moment where Nathan is struck with the baseball bat. But this whole scene really didn't have humorous moments until I would say when Roscoe, played by Jacob Batalon, shows up to help Nathan. He was, very funny for the short amount of time he was actually on screen. But the torture part of this scene is what got me. It didn't make me nauseous or anything like that, but it did make me wonder why Paramount pushed this movie to be so humorous when it has a nail-ripping torture scene. I mean, they really tried to push this movie as a comedy and tone down the torture and brutalism of the movie. And there just isn't enough comedy to push that angle for me. Also, as a critique, they killed the bad guy with the arrow that was embedded in Nathan Kane's leg by having Nathan punch it through from leg to leg because he has the bad guy's head in between his legs. But I don't think the arrow was actually long enough to go through both of Quaid's legs and through the bad guy's skull. But, that's just me being nitpicky. Now, to speed run the ending did have one particular moment that, it could have made me nauseous, but definitely made me go, damn! And that was the arm breaking scene. I was not prepared for the bone to completely snap and then see the bone. It was very graphic and a little predictable. I immediately knew what they were going to use it for. So it was very predictable that they would use it to kill Nicholson. But outside of that, I don't think there was anything else that was graphic. But I do think that if you didn't know about this, it would be a shock for you, especially if you think the movie was going to be funnier than it actually is. Even now, the shorts that Paramount is pushing shows a lot of the humor that the movie has, and leaving out all the torture. And finally, a couple of mentions before I sign off that I feel like this movie fell through with. Number one, you don't really understand why Amber Midthunder's Sherry is abandoning her robbing, thieving ways of life. You understand why Jack Quaid's Nathan is in love with Sherry after one date, and that it's because he's never been close to people. His best friend is a guy he plays video games with that he's never met. So, when like a beautiful woman shows interest in him, he goes, head over heels and is ready to do anything to keep her in his life, including chasing after the bad guys and killing 3 people. But you don't get that with Sherry. Sherry really doesn't have a reason for turning her back on her brother or gang. Maybe because they're becoming a little too violent. But they're about to flee to Mexico, so, this was their final heist. Also, according to some of the dialogue, she's done this seduction thing that she's done to Nathan on a number of people before they rob him. But apparently now she draws the line. I didn't quite understand why. She does have feelings for Nathan, but I don't know if it's enough in what we've seen for her to completely go good.
You love cola
Stop
gummies.
it, Simon. Stop.
What is this? Who is this little tantrum for?
We're alone now. You can feel free to break character whenever you like, sis.
It's just that you promised nobody would get hurt, okay? You fucking promised.
It's the heat of battle, Cher. Shit happens.
The heat of battle. You did not have to kill Nigel.
Nigel? Who is Nigel?
The bank manager. He was a nice fucking guy. You're so fucking impossible.
What's done is done. Okay. Let's just stay focused on the plan, and we can hash all this out later over some pina coladas in Mexico.
Outside of that, I think they probably just didn't want to do what they've done 10,000 times before. Our hero discovers that the woman that he's there to save is actually a villain and she betrays him, yada yada. And to go along with that, like I kept expecting them to make Matt Walsh involved with the gang and have him turn on his partner. But I was greatly surprised to find out that they didn't do that, because a lot of the arrows kept pointing in that direction. Number 2, the police in this don't actually make like real world police decisions, and only make decisions solely based on progressing the story. By this I mean the cops would have never dropped their guns when the bank robbers exited the building, especially after shots fired. Nor would our 2 detectives go to a violent bank robber's home without backup. Nor would they zero in on Nathan and the last bank robber, Nicholson's character, without backup as well. Or slapped handcuffs on Nathan before securing the violent criminal who just had a gun. They would have handcuffed him, dead or alive. So the cops in this didn't make, police decisions. They make writers' decisions in order to progress the story. Number 3, this movie really should have ended after Nicholson was shot. Our hero Nathan Cain finally finds, Simon and Sherry. He finds out the truth about Sherry and is tortured and nearly killed with a tire from a lowering car on a lift. The police then arrive and shoot Simon. And that's where I would have ended the action part of the movie. The rest of the action part with the ambulance fight, the dog fight between Sherry and Simon and Nathan, I felt was a little gratuitous. We've already seen Nathan be shot, burned, impaled, crushed, tortured. I was sitting there thinking, I just don't know what more they needed to put him through. So then they have him defib himself, eject a huge amount of adrenaline a second time, and then use his bone as a knife. They could have just ended the movie with Simon being shot. The final chase scene and the fighting on the docks, it wasn't really necessary. I guess they just wanted to have a cool death scene for Simon and having Jack Quaid's character kill someone with his bone. But it wasn't really necessary. It just extended the movie another 10 or so minutes. So, yeah. But that's all my issues with this movie. But I'm not saying I didn't like the movie. I'm just saying I would have done things maybe differently. I like the makeup and the prosthetics. Story could have been tweaked a little more humor, I believe. But all in all, it's, a middle of the road movie. Not bad, not great. But you could feel a little betrayed if you're expecting a lot more humor. But outside of that, you guys have a good one.